Hello and welcome. We're so glad to have you with us today. Thank you for your patience while we were dealing with a technical difficulty, unexpected at the last second, and we're taking care of that. So we are so glad to have you at this second session of the Awaken Your Potential Leadership Series, 10 Ways to Unlock Greatness. I'm your moderator, Jenny Alton from the New York Small Business Development Center Central Office. Today, our topic is we must value people to add value to people. And your presenter is Chad Reyes again, author and renowned coach of Lions Pride Leadership. This webinar is brought to you by the New York Small Business Development Center network of 20 campus-based centers and many more outreach offices, which are located across New York State, along with the central office based in Albany. The NYSBDC is a U.S. Small Business Administration resource partner. Our free advising, education, research, and advocacy services are made possible by funding from the SBA, New York State, and our host campuses. So you know, this session is being recorded. We will share it with attendees in the next few days in a follow-up email. Attendees are muted and will not be on camera today. Your chats will only be visible to me and our presenter. If you have any questions during the presentation, please don't hesitate to type them in the Q&A box as they come up. You can open Zoom's Q&A box from the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. We will likely save most questions for a Q&A session at the end of the presentation to make sure that Chad can get through all of his material today, and you have a chance to hear all of that good stuff from him. And with that, I will turn the time over to Chad.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm so excited to be with you guys today and just share from my heart on some of the things that are in this chapter as we continue on the second part of this series. So, you know, we're gonna jump in today, and one of the things that we're gonna talk about is we're gonna be sharing about we must value people to add value to people. You know, last week we were discussing about good intentions versus intentionally good, and we're going to kind of build off of that. And I have a story today, and I know, Jenny, you're going to be bringing up a video that we're going to watch for a moment. But I have a story today. I'm going to read it directly because I don't want to botch it up. But it's from the Girl Scouts of America, and I'll just share this with you that. A couple of years back, my wife and I were in Savannah, Georgia. We had done a road trip, actually. It was our first road trip that we took a month off, which thank God we were able to do. We haven't done it since, but we did do it at that point. And one of the stops was Savannah, Georgia, and it was very powerful because we stopped there, and in Savannah, Georgia was the headquarters of Girl Scouts of America, and with the founder, Juliet Gordon Lowe, where she resided, where she lived. And it was really impactful just to see, because you hear so often about the impact that Girl Scouts has made on so many lives. You know, Juliet was born in 1860, and she passed away in 1927. But the impact is tremendous. And the reason why is, when I talk about we must value people to add value to people, she did that at such a phenomenal level. You know, she founded it in 1912, the Girl Scouts of America. And today, there's nearly 250 million girls that have gone through the program. Think about that for a moment, talking about adding value to people. She has about 250 million girls that have gone through the program. So much so that if you could see on the screen, you see that there's a woman there, Lois Hirschman, Lofi, as she's known, or Daisy was her nickname. And what's really powerful about that is Lofi started at a very young age, and she had some trials. And I just want to read an excerpt from the website. I don't want to botch it up, so I'm going to read it directly. But it was you can find this on the Girl Scouts website, but it was 1938, in the midst of the Great Depression, and Lofi Hirschman was 89 years old, at that time was 89, was just 10. Times were tough, and she was struggling with various learning disabilities. The school was another challenge. In those days, students with special needs had little support. Then a friend introduced Lofi to Girl Scouts, and everything changed. It was, in her words, magic. Girl Scouting was so good for me as a child. It helps you understand your abilities, get feedback, keep at it, and find a way to do things that work for you. At 50, I went back to college and got A's and B's. Girl Scouts made that possible. Reveling in the camaraderie and positive reinforcement that she found early in her Girl Scout experience, Lofi set out to become a lifetime Girl Scout. As a child, she stayed with Girl Scouts all the way through high school. Then as an adult, she remained committed to the same mission that opened her up to new opportunities, experiences, and self-confidence by becoming a volunteer. Never want to stay stagnant, Lofi went on to serve as a Girl Scout service unit manager, as a board member, and in countless other roles. And in that time, she dedicated her life to the relationship between girls, helping them understand one another and teaching adults to do the same. I think it's so important to learn to be nice to someone, even if you don't want to, she said, to smile, to help one another, just simple things. They matter. I think the most beneficial thing about Girl Scouts is the feeling of belonging that you get, the moral code that you learn to actually live by in a way that you can understand. The reason why I bring this story up is that they figured out how to do it on a large scale. You know, Juliet Gordon-Low, she valued people, and then she added value. Actually, it was a group of 18 girls that first started. That's how it started. 18 girls that they invested in, that she developed, and she added value to. And eventually, you fast forward nearly 110 years later, or more than that now, and 250 million girls globally have been through. So right now, we're gonna put on the screen a short video just around the impact that valuing people and adding value to people make around the globe. So Jenny, if you could put that on.
Speaking up for what's right. Helping out when things go wrong. Raising our voices alone or together. Not just breaking news, but breaking barriers. Fighting for victory on the battlefield and on the playing field. Seeing the world through new eyes and the earth from miles above. Redefining beauty, brains, and what it really means to be queen. Making ourselves heard on stage and on screen. Showing the way in Silicon Valley and showing up for others wherever help is needed most. Not just making our mark, but making a difference. Now that's a job for a Girl Scout. Girl Scouts, preparing girls for a lifetime of leadership.
So Girl Scouts obviously has impacted many people over the years. When you look at some of the top leaders, you see that they were impacted by their time in the Girl Scouts. And, you know, I just want to share with you today about how valuing people can turn into adding value to people. And I want to give you some steps on that, but I want to share something first before we do so. And I just got to change my screen here. Oh, by the way, on the screen here, that is actually Lofi's actual Girl Scouts handbook. So this was hers that she used at 10 years old. Pretty powerful, right? So but look here now. So according to Office Vibe, 69% of employees say they would work harder if they felt their efforts were better recognized. 78% of employees said that being recognized motivates them. And 72% says that employees get praised less than once a week. Now, why does that matter? Because employees who feel that their voices are heard are 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered. Now, as a leader, that is not an easy thing. You know, one of the things that I'll share as a leader is that no matter where you're leading, whether it's your company or an organization or a not-for-profit, it's hard, right, to have people make sure that their voices are being heard, because it's a powerful thing when people's voices are being heard, but it's also making sure that you're able to guide the organization in a good direction. So I just want to, we have one of our coaches on our team who's a Navy SEAL, and he shared this with us a couple of years ago, and I think it's just powerful. I didn't have it in my notes, but I think it's something that I really feel like you should hear. He talks about the three things: voice, veto, and vote. And as leaders, we need to have people understand that they can have a voice at the table, they get to vote at the table, or as the leader of the organization, you get to veto it when you like to, when you believe that it's not going in the direction. So coming back to this is that people who feel that their voices are heard are 4.6 times more likely to feel empowered. But as a leader, we have to manage those three things. So voice, giving people a voice, letting them know in a conversation, do they have the ability to vote? Or the last is, as the leader of that division or organization, do you use the veto card when you want to use it because you think it's in the best interest of the organization? So I throw that out there because I think it's a very powerful tool that can be used as a leader. Very simply, voice, veto, and vote. So let's jump on in now. So these are the four things that people want. Every person wants to be valued. Every person wants to be appreciated. Every person wants to be respected. And every person wants to be understood. And now that may look very different for every person. And the question is, how do you know that they want to be valued? I heard John Maxwell say this. He said that how we know someone wants to be valued is because they still have air in their lungs. If they still have air in their lungs, they want to feel valued. How about appreciated? What is feeling appreciated? That's the question that we have to ask ourselves as leaders is, how does people feel appreciated? You know, there's Gary Chapman wrote a book. It's called The 5 Love Languages. Now, it's for relationships, but they also have a book that he wrote for the workplace. And he talks about how people feel valued and how people feel appreciated. And I would encourage you to read the book, especially for relationships. It's a phenomenal book on Gary Chapman, the five love languages. That's the book. And then everyone wants to be respected. You know, Aretha Franklin, you remember that song, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. Well, I don't have a career in singing, as you can tell, but that song was really impactful because if you think about it, it said, what do you want? What do you need? All I'm asking is for a little R-E-S-P-E-C-T. So I want to give you a little, acronym to remember. And this is from University of California. It came from one of the professors there. So the R is rapport. The E is empathy. The S is support. The P is partnership. The E is explanation. The C is competence. And the T is trust. So when you think about it, when you say people want to feel respected, they're looking for that rapport, empathy, support, partnership, explanation, competency, and trust. And then lastly, everyone wants to be understood. You know, this thing here is amazing because it gives us tremendous ability to do things. But the one thing that I've seen, and I've seen it in my own personal life, I see it with my family, I see it with my wife, I see it with our teams. If we don't manage this well, it becomes such a distraction. Because part of people wanting to be understood is they want your time. And I found myself, sometimes I'm having a conversation with my wife and my business partner, and I find myself on my phone, scrolling. For what reason? You know, I realize that it's not making her feel like she's being heard. But we do that often. We do that with people on our teams. We do that with family members. So part of being understood is being present, being fully present in that moment. So I want to provide you a couple of steps, four steps to adding value, okay? The first step is this, and we'll open it up for some questions. Feel free to put them in the chat box, your questions, and I know Jenny will open them up as we get towards the tail end of the session. But the first thing is think less about yourself and more about others. Now think about that for a moment. Why is thinking less about yourself so important? Because if you're thinking about yourself all the time, you won't have enough time to add value to the people that are around you. And I share that in the book because, you know, I had read a book many years ago, and the first page of the book said it's not about you. And that shifted me. That was 2009 when I read that book, and it said it's not about you. And up until that point, I thought everything was about me. I thought life was about me. Well, that's how you're trained. Because think about it, when you're a child and you cry, you get the attention. Part of adding value to people is that you have to think less about yourself and more about others. You know, one of the things around that topic is to do that, we have to live a life that we're giving more than we take. Think about this for a moment. Let's just say for a moment you had a $1 bill or a $20 bill in your pocket, and you and I were in a conversation, right? So I asked you for your $20 bill, and you gave me your $20 bill, and I gave you my $20 bill, and we did that for an hour, back and forth. I give you the 20, you give me the 20 back. You give me the 20, I give you the 20. After an hour, we've wasted an hour of time, and none of us walk away better because all we're doing is just giving back equal. Part of thinking less about yourself is, how do we just give more to people? And yes, could you be hurt when you give more to people? There's no doubt about it. I've been scarred. I've been burned. My wife and I have done that. But giving to people, and one of the things I've committed to is to constantly keep giving. But giving more to people is so key. Because if you keep giving to people and you keep adding value to people, you live a life where you're in a surplus. You live a life where you give more than you take. And that's what great leaders will do. They'll always figure out ways to add more value to people. You know, I'll just tell you this, a mature leader focuses on themselves. An immature leader focuses on themselves. It's about them. It's about me. Everything me, 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 me. But a mature leader will focus on others. And how do I add value to them? And one of the things I always say when I speak to people and I do leadership lessons is adding value to someone first requires you understanding what is valuable to them. So if we don't know what's valuable to the person, then it's very, very hard for us to add value to that person. So that's the first step. We got to think less about yourself and more about others. Let's go to the second step. Practice the golden rule. You know, the golden rule is very simple. We hear it. It's across many different religious faiths. It's across many different cultures. It's treat others as you would like to be treated, right? And we've all heard that. I say to my wife sometimes, and I laugh, and I said, babe, I just hope they don't treat me the way they treat themselves. Because many people that I know don't treat themselves well. So think about it. I don't want them treating me the way that they would treat themselves. But all joking aside around that, we want to practice the golden rule, which is treat others as you would like to be treated. And I want to break that down a little bit, and I go deeper into it in the book. But I talk about this thing called thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, results. So just write that down. Thoughts impact beliefs. Beliefs impact behaviors. Behaviors create results. So if you think about it, if there's anything in your life that you're trying to change, You usually try to change it by changing what you do, your behaviors, whatever you're doing. Let's say you're leading let's say you're a salesperson. You try to change your behaviors around that so that you get better results. But the thing that I know and scientifically is proven is that thoughts impact beliefs, and beliefs impact behaviors. And I'll give you a case in point. Many years ago, it was probably about 2009, I had a coach that I was working with at the time, and he said to me, he said, Chad, you don't like selling. And I said to him, I said, I do. He said, no, you don't. I could hear it in the way you say things. I said, Steve, I do. He goes, no. He goes, I want to share something with you. I want you to change the word selling to helping. He said, instead of saying how many families you wanted to sell or how many businesses you wanted to sell, say how many families or businesses you wanted to help. You know that one word, selling to helping, increased my production 500% that year? 500%. Because what happened was I addressed a belief system. And when it was selling people, I didn't like to sell. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just that was my belief system back then. When I moved it to help, my results went through the roof. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is this. When we practice the golden rule, our belief system about valuing the people is going to be the key to the results. Thoughts impact beliefs. Beliefs impact behaviors. Behaviors create results. Let's go to the next one. See everyone as a 10. You know, in one of the chapters that we'll be talking about this a little bit later in the session, but one of the chapters I talk about role versus identity. And in that, I talk about how important it is for our identity to be solid. Because if our identity is not solid, everything in this world is going to shift us and move us. And when we're not performing well in the business, or we're not performing well in the role as a parent, or whatever it may be, then we're not valuable. The reason why adding value to people is so key and seeing people as a 10 is because if we see them as a 10, then we'll want to add value to them. But if we see them as a 1, we'll want to manipulate them. We'll want to take advantage of them. So one of the ways that we can add value to people is seeing them as a 10. And then let me give you the last one. The last one is people who add value to others ask themselves these 3 questions. You ready for these 3 questions? These are the 3 questions, okay? The first question is this: do they know that I'm willing to help them? Ask yourself that question for a moment. Do the people in your life know that you're willing to help them? That's such a powerful question. Do they know that I am willing to help them? Because think about it. If they don't know that you're willing to help them, then how can you add value to them? That leads me to the second question. Do they know that I care about them? Does the person know that I care about them? And then let me give you the third question. Do they know that they can trust me? If those 3 questions if you're asking yourself those questions and you could answer them positively, that's how we're adding value to people. And Jenny, I know we have some questions that are coming up, so we'll jump to those in a minute or so. But the key here is that I mentioned in the first session that we need to move from having good intentions to being intentionally good, right? And I was kind of sharing that a lot of people have good intentions, but very few people are intentionally good. So much so that only 15% of the population is actually self-aware. And today I'm talking about that We must value people to add value to people. And if you think about it, if we don't add value to people, if we don't value them, we won't add value to them. But to add value to them, we got to move from having good intentions around it to being intentionally good. And these four things will allow us to be intentionally good when we are focused less on us and more on them. That's step one. When we practice the golden rule, assuming that we actually treat ourselves well, right? And if you don't treat yourselves well, I would encourage you to, because you treating yourself well and investing in yourself is a great thing to do, because then you'll be able to do for others. You can't do for others that you're not willing to do for yourself. The third is see everyone as a 10. So if you see them as a 10, then you'll want to add value to them. If you see them as a 5, then you won't try to add as much value to them. So the goal is, regardless of what you can get out of the relationship, see them as a 10. And then the last is those 3 questions. And I'll give you back those 3 questions. Do they know that I'm willing to help them? Do they know that I care about them? And do they know that they can trust me? Those are the 3 questions. So Jenny, why don't we open up some of the Q&A right now, and we can jump on in, and I'm going to
Sure.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay. So given the cultural differences and to some degree divide, any thoughts on best practices to better facilitate one's ability to add better value?
Yeah, so that is, in this world that we're living in, it's such a powerful, it's so needed, right? And my friend and mentor, John Maxwell, literally just wrote a book. It came out yesterday. It's called High Road Leadership. And it has a road. It has a red and a blue road that are kind of like splitting. And he talks about how to be a high road leader, especially in this world that we're living in right now, where everything is a divide, right? Like, I'll give you an example, and I don't know where you stand, Jenny, on this, but let's say if you're a Republican and then I'm a Democrat, well, then we're on a different side and now we're against each other. Or if I'm a Republican and you're a Democrat, we're against each other. I think the key is we got to find common things that we agree on, because it's so key to the success of an organization, and honestly, to the success of the communities that everyone's in, is that it's so easy for us to say we don't agree on all these things, right? Like, it doesn't take much for me to look at what you're doing and say I don't agree, but it takes a lot of courage to look at stuff and say, what are the things that we could build off of, common ground, build bridges from. And I think that that's a key.
Thank you. Would you please address being in the moment when interacting with others, especially for those of us who are multitaskers? So, yeah, and I know this person said, the mobile device is somewhat attached as a multitasker.
Listen,
yeah.
I get it. The first thing is that we have to recognize that technology, this being one of them, is an addiction to a certain extent. And I created years ago a very simple definition of an addiction for myself. It's something that I want to stop doing, but I can't. Just think about that. So if you're with your family and you really don't want to be on the phone, but you want to be present with them, but you find yourself constantly being on the phone, that you're addicted to the phone. If let's say you really don't want to be drinking, but you're constantly drinking, then there's an addiction to drinking, right? So it's really key to create some healthy boundaries around it. And I'll share with you that this is not something I do phenomenally well. But one thing that I try my best to do is when I'm in meetings with people, I do try to put my phone down when I'm in a meeting with a client or when I'm in a meeting with other people. I try my best to put the phone down, unless sometimes I'm in meetings with team members and I'm working on stuff while we're in the team meeting. I'm not saying that's perfect, I'm not saying it's the best, but sometimes I'll do that. But like when I'm with clients, I really almost rarely ever will look at the phone, but I built that in as a discipline. And the thing that I realized is that being present requires a dedication to it. Everything in life requires a decision. So if we're going to be present, then we got to make that decision today that I'm going to be present. You know, I'll give you an example. I had a mentor, Jenny, many years ago, who I sent an email out. Now, I'm not saying it's a right or wrong, but it's the power of making a decision. You ready? So years ago, this was 2010 maybe, I sent an email out to a client, and he was a mentor of mine, and he was on the email, and I said, hey, and I wrote the email. Now, I'm not saying right or wrong. This is style right now. This is not a right or wrong. He said to me, though, Chad, in the world that we're in, the business that we're in, put hi, not hey. I said, well, why do you say that? He said, because it's more professional, it's more courteous to the person on the other side. And I said, all right. I never looked at it like that. But the power of a decision is I've since then never wrote hey again. Now, I'm not saying for people who write hey in their email is wrong or right. All I'm saying is the power of a decision, because when he brought that to me that day, I realized, I said, yeah, why don't I just say hi instead of hey? I never realized that. Now, like I said, it's not a right or wrong. It's very much of a style, but the power of making a decision. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is when it comes to being mindful, present in the moment, it's the power of a decision. You know, on our last session, I shared about that moment at 23 years old when I looked in the mirror and I didn't like the person I had become. At that moment, I made a decision. The decision is that I'm gonna forever be growing the rest of my life. I'm not gonna give up when things get hard like I used to. And when it comes to being present in the moment, that's a decision. Starting today, I'm gonna be more present so I can add value to people. That's just a decision. And then what does that look like? I won't bring my cell phone into a meeting. What does that look like? I won't bring the cell phone into the bedroom when I'm with my spouse. I mean, whatever that may be. I'm not saying a right or wrong. I'm not trying to say what my belief is should be yours. But all I am saying is it requires a decision and then the courage to carry it out.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions about what you touched on with finding balance, so as not to overextend oneself or neglect other aspects of one's life. The second person talked about, being that mature leader and finding that balance with, the maturity that you're demonstrating as a leader. So could you talk about that a little bit more, please?
Yeah. So this is the thing about being a good leader. You don't have to be perfect. I specifically can think of 3 instances as a leader that I've dropped the ball. Just this past 5 months, 3 instances very clearly that I can say I dropped that ball, right? The good thing about being a leader is you don't have to be perfect. You see, that's one of the things about a mature leader is a mature leader understands that you don't have to be perfect, but you have to lean towards good leadership. An immature leader will think that you always have to be perfect. And the truth of it is, with the level, and many of you on this call probably have tremendous pressure on you, growing your companies, growing your organizations. There's a lot of pressure that many of your team members will never understand because they may not have that level of pressure on them, right? They have the pressure of payroll, pressure of all the different things that a business owner or a business leader or a division head has to be responsible for, right? Part of that is building grace into it. Like when I was less capable as a leader many years ago, I always thought everyone had to be perfect. And as I've matured, I realized that I don't need people to be perfect all the time. I need to be people that have good intentions. I need to have people that are trying their best, but not perfect. And as a leader, that balance is progress. Don't miss this one, though. It's progress, not perfection. in everything we're doing, are we progressing? When we go into companies, Jenny, and we're looking and working with their teams, and people ask me, well, how do you know if their person's moving in the right direction? I say two things. Has the severity of the situation gotten has the severity gotten less? Meaning, like, if someone causes problems on the team, has the severity of it gotten less? Meaning, when it does happen, it's not as much as it used to be. That's the first thing I look for. And the second, has the timing gotten wider? Meaning, if it used to happen every week, now is it happening every month or every quarter? If those two things, if it's getting less in severity and the time is getting longer in between it, that is progress. And don't miss that, because that's how you keep balance. If severity gets less and the time gets bigger in between, that means you're moving in a good direction. When the severity continues to increase or stay the same, and the time period stays the same or actually is happening more frequently, that's when you know you're moving in the wrong direction. And I look at that on people on our team. I'm always looking at that. I may have never expressed this to them, but I look at that because I see if the severity is getting worse, if like someone says they're doing something and they don't, and now it's happening more frequently, you're able to say, like, we're moving backwards, we're not moving forward. And I think that'll help build balance when you use those two things in the context of leadership.
And so to build on this idea of balance, what do you do, Chad, to balance? I know you're very focused on giving outward and helping others, especially through leadership. What do you do to maintain balance yourself?
So there's two things, and the first one I'm going to preface this with saying I'm coming at it from my faith perspective, because you're asking the question. So I am a person of faith. So spending time in the Word of God is very important to me. That is key. I spend time in the morning. I read the Word. I'll listen to worship music. The second thing is, regardless of whether you're a person of faith, I would encourage you is to read books. Pick up my book that I have that we're going through, because that will help you with having good thoughts and beliefs, right? But the second part of that is, so if it's not the Bible, or if it's not a leadership book, choose one of them or both of them. I typically do both. But the second part is I use the sauna as a way to manage my stress. So my wife and I, as you know, Jenny, we lead multiple organizations. I was just thinking about this. What we're doing here today, I was talking about it with someone else. Next week, on the 15th and 16th, I speak 5 times in 2 days. 5 times to all different groups of leaders. I speak to principals of the Department of Education. Then I speak to high-level leaders of bigger companies. Then I'm going to be speaking to a group of partners at an accounting firm. So the level of intensity is a lot. But the thing that I'll do is every night, well, not every night, probably 4 times a week, I'll go in the sauna and I'll sweat out toxins, because I know toxins increase stress in our lives. I'll put on some worship music. But if not, you put on some music that you listen to in your AirPods. I'll give you an example. Like, before I had the sauna in our home, I would have the sauna I would go to the gym, whether it was LA Fitness or New York Sports Club. And granted, I'm not going to take worship music and blast it in the sauna, right? And everyone has to hear it. But I would put my AirPods on or my earplugs in, and I would listen to it in the sauna. But that's what I do to recharge and stay focused and stay grounded, because when you have the pressure of family, business, leadership, and then depending on where you're at, you have all these different things pulling for you. You got to have something of how you're going to manage stress, or the stress is going to eat you alive. It will eat you alive, and you won't stand a chance. So that's how I do it. I do my power hour in the morning, which is the Word of God, leadership books, and then the sauna, or I'll do it at night, the sauna. So it's very, very powerful for me. And What I have found is that studies show that people who use the sauna, besides the health benefits, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it's like 50 to 60% less. You reduce cardiac risk by being in the sauna. So it actually lowers your stress level. It helps with blood pressure. It helps with your skin. I was telling my wife this. It actually helps with collagen. You know that? I just found that out. Being in the sauna actually reproduces collagen, which is nuts. I didn't know that. But the reason why I bring all that up is that there's all those physical benefits, but there's also the mental benefits of the ability to be more focused, more present. I hope that helped.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, whatever it is for each person, I think it's finding that thing
Yeah,
that really is that calming influence. And
correct.
so really quickly, could we have you spell out respect, what you did with
Yeah,
the acronym?
yep. Yeah, so respect was rapport, empathy, support, partnership, explanation, competence, and trust.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you handle being taken advantage of when you are out there working hard to add value to people?
Yeah. You know, Jenny, my wife and I were just having this conversation. I know that people will try to take advantage of her and I, but I will tell you this, I won't stop adding value to people. You know, I'm going to give you a story. I want to tell this short story because I think it'll really impact you on the other end. I had a friend many years ago. He owned a dental lab and he had a very successful dental lab, right? And he was telling me and Danielle not in confidence, but he was sharing with us on our journey. It was probably about 10 or 12 years ago. And he said, you know, he said, Chad, every day I would open up my store, my dental lab, and every night I would lock it and close it, and I would open it and close it, and I would open it and close it. He said, and the reason why I did that is I had platinum and silver that we would put in teeth, and I had a pretty decent sized staff, and I didn't want them to steal from me. He said, so every day I would open and I would close, and I would open and I would close, and I would open and I would close. He said, until one day it dawned on me, it was about after 10 years. He said, it dawned on me that they weren't robbing from me. I was robbing from myself. Because I didn't trust them, I robbed myself from all of the things that I could have done with those time. Because it's not like he wanted to be there because he needed to be there. He wanted to be there to make sure that he wasn't getting robbed. And the reason why I say that is this. There is going to be people that are going to take advantage of you. I've had it happen in my own life. I have had people that I've given to, and honestly, Jenny, they've created a different story. They've told people things over the 15, 20 years I've been in business. They would tell them stories that were not accurate. But that's not, you know, as a person of faith, my job is not to defend myself. But I made a decision years ago that I'm not going to not invest in people because I may get hurt. I know that I'm going to get hurt at times. I go into every person on our team that at some point they're going to hurt me. Not meaning I want them to, not meaning I'm hoping for them to, but I know that they're human and they will hurt me at some point. And I'm sure that I will say things or do things that will hurt them at some point. But I made this decision many years ago that I will not stop adding value to people because I've been hurt. I will not stop investing in people because of one or two people burned me. That's not going to happen, because you want to know what's going to happen then is I'm going to be a grumpy old man one day on my deathbed saying I coulda, shoulda, and woulda, but I didn't because I was hurt. And to me, I've shared. I don't know if I shared this with this group, but I think, Jenny, I think I may have shared this in one of the other trainings we did with some of the teams. And one of the things that I think about all the time is I think about that. I think I shared in the last session. My dad had 60 surgeries, so I've been in the hospital a lot. I've been in doctors a lot over my lifetime. And one of the things that I always envisioned was like, what would it look like when I'm that day when I'm on my deathbed, and when I have no more, when the doctor comes to me and says, Chad, you have 2 hours left. The thing that has driven me was I do not want to be on that bed at that time and have all these dreams and visions in my heart that I didn't fulfill because I was scared of being hurt by people, because I couldn't trust people. So because I was scared of being burned or hurt, or because I was fearful that I couldn't trust the person, I wound up not taking action. And now I'm, God willing, 100+ years old. And now I'm on that bed and I say, I ran out of time, but I had more dreams and visions in my heart. That to me was a motivating factor from a very young age, 25 years old. And I hope that what I shared motivates you, because people will burn you. There's no doubt. People will break trust with you. There's no doubt. But you have to make a decision that regardless of that, I'm going to constantly be adding value to people. Because if you take that posture, then there are going to be people that you're going to do things with and you're going to invest in, and they're going to bring you some of the greatest joys in your life. And then there's going to be people that you invest in and they're going to hurt you. But at the end of the day, make a decision. Like I said earlier, make a decision that you're always going to invest and add value to them, to people. And it changes the game. It's changed everything for me, Jenny.
Thank you. Chad, really quick, I am going to drop the link for your survey into the chat.
Great.
So if you wanted to tell what comes with that survey, if people are interested in doing that.
Great. Yeah, I'll bring up the screen. Hold on one second. One is, if you were on last week and you scanned the QR code, thank you for that. And our team did send out the first chapter of the book. If you haven't, I'd encourage you to do that. And these are the questions that are on there. But even if you did get the chapter, if you can complete this, because what it does is it helps us understand the impact that we're making. It helps us also when we're preparing for the next one. How do we get better? We go through a cycle of test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. And when I'm coming back next time, I try to kind of keep those things top of mind. So if you can do that, and then anyone that's on for the first time, Jenny, they're going to get, when they put their name, email, and complete this short little survey, which is the questions on there, they're going to get an email in the next 24 hours with the first chapter of the book.
And so just to share some information, I've had a few questions about, yes, we are recording, and we will share this recording. And there is a YouTube playlist now for this series, and I will put that link in the chat in just a few moments here. But I want to get you going on another question, Chad, first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, okay. Do you find, and we'll, oh gosh, so many great questions in so little time. Okay, so we'll do, again, lightning round here. Do you find different generations like to be valued differently?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. We had done a session with you, Jenny, with the internal SBDC team on the different generations. So it probably would be too hard to go through some of that right now, but there is certainly a difference in generations and how they want to feel valued. And one of the things I would just say is this to that is embracing the concept of reverse mentoring. Reverse mentoring has nothing to do with age. It has to do with someone being further along in an area that you want to learn about. So I'll give you an example. My nephew knows AI much better than I did at a point. So he reverse mentored me. He's only 14, but he reverse mentored me. So don't allow mentoring to have to be an age thing. Mentoring has to be a wisdom thing. And if people have wisdom and knowledge that you don't have, regardless of age, well, then they can mentor you in that area. Because mentorship has nothing to do with age. Now, the great thing about the generations is that the more senior generation or more mature generation, they have more life experience. And they can bring tremendous life experience to conversations. So now that they can help interpret the data, because they don't need the younger generation doesn't need them to give them the information. They need them to interpret the information. So when it comes to the generations, it's just embracing the differences of the perspectives of the generations. And, you know, I wish we could spend more time on it, but we don't have that time right now.
No, but people, you're absolutely right that people feel appreciated when you see the value that they have to offer you. So you're absolutely right about that. Okay, we have a few questions regarding entrepreneurship specifically. So as newer entrepreneurs, what is the best way to add value in a team when you yourself are not even sure if the value you're providing, you know, you're not totally sure of things yourself yet?
Yeah. Well, the great thing about that is you don't have to know everything to add value. What you do need to do is there's one question that you need to ask yourself. What does the person, let's just say hypothetically, you're just starting a business, you have one other person on the team. What is that other person, what's valuable to that other person so you could help add value to them? That's really it. You don't need to be crystal clear on the vision, on the business. You don't need to be crystal clear on the vision. But what you do need to be, not crystal clear, but you do need to be working on is what does my other team member find valuable so that I can help add value to them. Really important. And don't beat yourself up. You're just starting. You know, as my friend and mentor John says, you're never good when you first start anyways. When you think about when I think about when I first started 20 years ago, I wasn't good. But the one thing that I can say about my wife and I is we didn't stop. We just kept moving. And what happens is as you keep moving, it gets clearer, and you get better, and you refine. And and I just want to share this with you. There'll come a moment that you'll actually be better than you are. There are times where now people think that I'm better than I am, not because I am better than I am, but because I've been speaking now so much that I actually can be perceived that I'm better than I am. But you just start walking, you just start moving, you just start focusing on adding value to that person on the team or your customer. And you do it really well, and watch what'll happen. It'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. You won't if you can value your team and value your customers, you won't be small for very long. I promise you.
Thank you. Yeah. So on that same topic, what suggestions do you have for setting up that culture of valuing people for these smaller organizations that are, you know, just starting out and figuring things out? What can they do from the beginning to really establish that culture?
Yep. So on the website, I have a website, chadreyes.com, and it was built to be resources for the book. But on there is something called our business model alignment. So if you go to book resources, you'll see that there's a document there. You could download it. You don't have to put any information in. You just download it. But in there, it's called the business model alignment. And it's purpose, vision, values, giftedness, strategy, metrics. Those are the 6 things that every organization has to work on and get right. What is the purpose? Why does this business exist? What is the vision for this business? Are we going to franchise it? Do we want to just be the best well-known local shop in our community? What is that vision? What are the values that we'll live by? What is the giftedness? What is the uniqueness, the strengths of the team members? We have a tool that we use that's on the website. What are the strengths? What is the strategy? So how do we go to market? How do we market the company? How do we handle operations? What is the strategy of the company? And then what are the metrics to keep everyone accountable? You don't need to do it perfect, but if you could start using that as a framework, they'll start building a better culture, start building a better business model. And this is the thing I will just say to everyone on the call. Don't be perfect. just constantly have progress, constantly get better. And what'll happen is in a year from now, you'll have a totally different business than you had last year.
Thank you. We had somebody who really liked the idea of changing that perspective from selling to helping. And so this person is a service provider and wants to know, if you're in a conversation with someone, how can you kind of turn that conversation toward, helping versus selling,
That's a good question.
to communicate that properly.
I'm just going to speak, Jenny, from my life. That's probably the best way I can do it, right? When I'm selling someone, now this is my perspective. I'm not saying it's the right perspective. I'm just saying from my perspective, when I was struggling through that, when I was selling someone, what I was trying to do in my perspective at that moment was separate them from their money. They had the money. I needed the money. Now, I didn't do it unethically, but I needed to do whatever I can to sell them that so that I can have the money. What happened is when I went to helping, I realized it was a belief system shift that what I do makes a difference. And because what I do makes a difference, I want as many people to know about what I do because I want to make a difference in their life. And it really changed the game because my language changed. Instead of me saying, well, features and benefits, features and benefits, features and benefits, which is what you're told to sell, I was talking about, well, tell me your dreams, tell me your vision, tell me what you want to see happen. Let me tell you how what I have can help you accomplish that faster, better, cheaper. But when I was just focused on trying to sell them, it was me just trying to get a transaction and a sale. And honestly, it didn't sit right with me. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying how I was built in my DNA. I'm more relational driven when it comes to the process than transactional driven. If you're transactional driven and you have a great product, then keep doing what you're doing and sell, not only sell it at the rooftop. Because if your product is great and you're transactional and you're adding, and that product is adding value to people, then keep doing what you're doing. Don't get confused with selling and helping. Selling is a good thing. My style, for me, I needed to help. And where other salespeople, I know that they already know that they're helping because their product solves, they have the cure for cancer, so they want to make sure they get it in everyone's hands. They don't need to look at it saying, I'm helping, I'm helping, I'm helping. They already know they got the cure for cancer. But in where I was 15 years ago, I needed to work through that. And the language was, what I do matters. And when I help the right people, it makes a difference in their life and it adds value to them. And that's the mindset that I think as anyone who's in sales has to just say, how do I add value to people? Your style will be different than others, but the posture has to be, I want to add value to them.
Thank you. All right, so we are at time for today. I know that there were a few questions that we didn't get to, but we will provide that link in the follow-up email so that you can get that chapter of the book. And then I believe they can make a comment in that survey as well if they have a further question or would like to communicate something further. So we'll make sure to get that out to you in the follow-up email that will be coming to you. So we will get this recording up soon on that YouTube playlist that we've shared and get all that information to you. Chad, thank you so much for another fantastic session today. Thank you to everyone who has been here and asked such fantastic questions. You are a big part of this series as well, and we appreciate you. And we do have an evaluation that will show on your screen when I shut the webinar down here. If you have a few minutes to leave us some feedback on today's session, we always appreciate hearing from you and hearing what else we can help you with, what other topics you would like to see trainings from the New York Small Business Development Center on. And so with that, I will bid you all a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.